So everyone, welcome back to Motorsport Unlimited and welcome to our 2021 driver prediction video. We thought that we would have some fun today and give our predictions for the 2021 Formula 1 grid. This year's silly season could be a very interesting one as only 5 drivers have contracts past this year. So let's get into this. Now before we begin, please help us out by smashing that subscribe button and make sure you ding that bell for all the latest videos from us. Now, where else to begin than the current reigning world champions, Mercedes. Now, both of their drivers are out of contract at the end of this year, so they could have quite a shake-up if they wanted to. However, I do not believe that this would happen, and I think Lewis Hamilton will remain with the team until at least 2022. Now, I think at that point he will start to properly look at retirement or maybe continuing or switching teams, but I think that Hamilton will re-sign with Mercedes for another 2 years at least. Up until 2022 when the new regulations finally come in. Partnering him is an interesting one. Currently we have Valtteri Bottas. Now Bottas has been on a set of 1-year deals each year, just renewing his contract by 1 year. Now this doesn't put any certainty in him re-signing, and obviously Mercedes are not pinning their future down with him as they don't want to sign him on a long-term deal. So with this in mind, I believe that George Russell will be partnering Lewis Hamilton for the 2021 season. Now, George has really shown that he can race hard after winning the Formula 2 title in 2018 and although the Williams car last year was not good enough to challenge for points, I think Russell had a really good season at Williams and showed that he was ready and can be ready to move up to Mercedes if they call him up, and I think that they will. I think that with the rules staying pretty similar, they'll want a shake-up and they'll want Russell to be ready for the new 2022 regulations now, and that he will slot in next to Lewis Hamilton as the effective number 2 driver, but that will be an interesting battle with those two to see who is the better of the 2 drivers, old versus young. Now, Ferrari have 1 driver confirmed until 2024, and that is Charles Leclerc, and he recently signed an extension to keep him at the team until 2024, as Ferrari have seemed to pin their future on him. Now, partnering him is an interesting one, and currently we have Sebastian Vettel. Now, there's been a lot of rumours swirling around recently that he'll be retiring at the end of this season or won't be continuing with Ferrari, but I do not believe these were true. And I believe that Sebastian Vettel will re-sign with Ferrari, again like Lewis Hamilton, for another 2 seasons at least. I think that Vettel still has a lot of want in him to win races and win titles, so I think he'll be really looking for these next 2 years to really put his name back, as it seems to be a bit tarnished in the last few years, with his performances slacking from his Red Bull days. Now, I think that there is the opportunity for another Ferrari driver to come in, but they don't really have anyone at the moment except Giovinazzi, and I don't think that they will be wanting to replace a 4-time world champion with kind of an unproven Giovinazzi here, so I think that Vettel will resign for another 2 seasons. Moving on to Red Bull, and Red Bull again have another driver in contract, which is Verstappen until 2023. He again signed a long-term deal as Red Bull seem to pin their future down on him. Now, partnering him at the moment is Alex Albon, and I do really rate Alex, but I do not think that Red Bull will back him when they get into contract talks with this driver. Now, I think that partnering Max Verstappen will be Daniel Ricciardo. Now, many of you may think, oh, this is a bit weird, but I can see Ricciardo returning to Red Bull very, very easily for next season. Ricciardo moved to Renault for the 2019 season and had a torrid first year, and I do not think that this year will be any better for Ricciardo once the season gets underway. I've seen some rumours circulating recently that he has contacted Red Bull about the possibility of rejoining for 2021, and I can see that happening with Albon not giving the results that Red Bull will want. I think that Albon will have a really good year this year, but it will not be up to what Red Bull are expecting, and once Ricciardo comes knocking, I'm sure Red Bull will be quite happy enough to take him back. Now, on to McLaren. Now, McLaren, I think, for me, is quite an easy one, and I think that Norris and Sainz will both remain with the team and sign new long-term deals. They both work incredibly well together and really well with the team, and the results for the team last year, as we saw, were really good from both of them. There's no reason for McLaren to mix up their formula, and I think they work perfectly well together, and McLaren will be very happy to keep them both on long-term deals. Now, moving to Renault. Now, they have Esteban Ocon in contract until the end of the 2021 season, so he will be there in the team. Now, who do I believe that he'll be partnered by? Obviously not Daniel Ricciardo, as I think he will leave, but I think he'll be partnered and to form an all-French lineup for the French team by Pierre Gasly. Now, I think that Red Bull have given Gasly his chance, and for him to make a jump back up for the Red Bull senior team is not likely. So I think once Gasly gets an offer from a team like Renault or someone a bit higher up the midfield than AlphaTauri, I think he will take the jump, and I think that he will take the jump into the Renault for 2021. Now, obviously from Renault's perspective, an all-French driver lineup in a French team is perfect, and I think that this is something that they are aiming for at the moment, actually. And I think once Ricciardo jumps ship, Gasly will be straight there and will be into the team. He seems to perform well and has really performed well in the AlphaTauri car, so hopefully he can continue that into the Renault team. Now, for Racing Point, I think this again is another simple one. With Perez having a contract until 2022, I think he'll be with the team until then. Now, we can't really look anywhere else except Lance Stroll for the second driver for the team. I mean, he's not really going to go anywhere with the team owned by his dad, so I think that Racing Point will continue with their two drivers until for at least another two to 3 years, especially on Lance Stroll's part. Now, Haas is an interesting one, and I think a lot of people were surprised this year when the team retained Romain Grosjean especially, but Kevin Magnussen a bit, as both drivers just haven't really been putting in the results, have been inconsistent, and from the outset it doesn't really look like they work very well together or with the team. So I think Haas will have a completely new driver lineup for 2021, and following on from the rumours from the back end of last season, I think that Nico Hülkenberg will make his F1 return and sign with Haas for 2021. Now, the team, I think, were tossing between him and Romain Grosjean for the 2020 season, but they went with Grosjean just because I think he's been embedded in the team, and the team really needed to understand the car and what was going wrong. But I think this will give the team a good opportunity to reset and get new drivers in that they want and that they think that can take the team further forward. I think that Nico Hülkenberg will sign, and alongside him will be Valtteri Bottas. Now, this might be an interesting one, and it is my kind of curveball for this episode, but I think with Hamilton out of Mercedes, he won't have very long to sort out where he's going, and I think that Haas will have him and Magnussen up against each other for that second seat at the team, and I think that they will choose Bottas, who is a proven race winner, someone who's relatively consistent, unlike Magnussen, and isn't going to really create many issues and will most likely work quite well next to Nico Hülkenberg. So I think Haas will take Bottas and Hülkenberg for the 2021 season. Now, moving on to AlphaTauri, and this is an interesting one, as at the moment the team's driver lineup seems a bit of a stopgap, as Red Bull don't really have anyone that they can put in the cars. Now, with Pierre Gasly leaving the team, from what I don't think he'll be in the car, and I don't think Kvyat will be in the car either. So, who will be in there? Now, my first bet will be Alex Albon. I think that with Ricciardo returning, he'll be obviously out of the Red Bull team, and they will give him a lifeline at AlphaTauri. Now, he can obviously either choose to accept that or just leave F1, but I think if you're a racing driver, you're probably going to want to take the seat in F1 and try to prove yourself to another team where you can do it again. So I think Alex Albon will be brought into the team as the team leader, someone who maybe will win races, but I think definitely will get podiums in 2020. So he'll be a proven podium worthy driver, and I think he'll be brought in to lead the team forward. Now, who do I think will be beside him? I think that with the Honda backing and Honda want to try bring a Japanese driver in and one of the Honda young drivers, I think Yuki Tsunoda will be brought in alongside Alex Albon. He's about to start his Formula 2 career this year and had a really stunning second half to the Formula 3 season last year, so I think Honda will really pressure Red Bull, especially as they have no one else to put in the seat, to put Yuki Tsunoda into the car for 2021. Now, I think he's a bit of an unproven formula, but I can't really see who else Red Bull will want to put in that seat except Kvyat, and I think realistically to Kvyat that at the moment he's just a bit of a stopgap for the team, as they have no one old enough or experienced enough to put in there. Now for Alfa Romeo. Now this is a relatively easy one for me, as I think Giovinazzi will stay at the team, as again I don't think Ferrari really have anyone else, because he is in the Ferrari operated seat there. I don't think he will really have anyone else to challenge him for that for the 2021 season. Now, I think that Kimi Raikkonen will retire at the end of this year, so obviously I think there will be a vacancy at the team with Giovinazzi. So who do I think will replace him? Now, there's a couple of options of Ferrari young drivers. Now, I think it'll be a mix-up between Mick Schumacher and Robert Schwartzman for the seat, but I think Schumacher will take it because I think this season he'll really find his feet in F2 and really have a stunning season and really go for the title. Now, I think that Giovinazzi will be expected to fill this team leader role with young Mick next to him, and I think he will do that relatively well, but it will be interesting to see how Mick does against Giovinazzi, who's had at this time two seasons worth of F1 experience. Now, finally coming to Williams. Now, obviously with Russell gone, they'll have a vacant seat in that team, but I think that Nicholas Latifi, the second driver, will remain for the season, as the sponsors that he brings in really support the team, and I'm sure they really won't mind him being in the team if he has some good results this year. Now, the question is who fills the gap next to him. Now, there's not very many Mercedes young drivers at the moment that will be ready to make the jump up to Williams. Now, I think that Mercedes' back seat at Williams will be left vacant. Now, Williams have their own young driver system now, with the likes of Jack Aitken, Dan Ticktum and Jamie Chadwick in it at the moment. Now, I think it will be a toss-up between those three for the seat for 2021. But looking at those three, I think Dan Ticktum will be ruled out the equation, as he's had a relatively turbulent last few years and he's going into F2 for the first time this year, so I think Williams will want him to have at least 2 seasons in F2 before giving him the jump up to F1 possibly. Now, I think that Williams will go with Jack Aitken for their second driver, just because I think that they really see something in Jack, as they poached him from the Renault Driver Academy, and they seem to be looking for him for a 2021 seat, as they seem to have accepted that George Russell will obviously leave for Mercedes at some point in the near future. So I think that it will either be between Jack Aitken or Jamie Chadwick, but I think that Jack will get the seat. Due to his finances as well, he seems to bring a lot of sponsors to the team, which I'm sure Williams will not be complaining about. So I think that will round off the 2020 grid. Now, some of these have been a bit controversial, and I would really like to hear what you guys think of my predictions, and also give your own predictions, so I can have a look through what all of you think as well, and see if mine are completely different to all of yours, or everyone's on the kind of same level pegging with who they think is going to be where. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and please make sure to leave your predictions down below so I can look through them all.